Hello my loves, I'm Ellie Frost. Thank you so much for being on this channel where we are talking about the multi-dimensional approach to rapidly and radically healing and transforming during and after narcissistic abuse. And this video is about gaslighting and narcissistic abuse. Gaslighting is absolute standard in these relationships. It's psychological and psychic warfare and spiritual warfare, and should be treated, I believe, as seriously as any other assault to a human being. Let's talk about what it is. I actually looked up the definition just now so I can give you what that was. Gaslighting is when someone uses psychological methods to make you question your own sense of reality and your own sense of reasoning. It is the land of deceit, deception, and blaming you. It is when your feelings, emotions, and concept and perception of reality will be denied. Often with a narcissist, if you say you cheated on me, they'll say that's what you did, or something, they'll blame you. They will deny that your emotions are valid. They might even tell you that you shouldn't be feeling. I had that all through my childhood, the way you were feeling, right? You're overreacting. You're too sensitive. That didn't happen. It wasn't like that. I don't know what you're talking about. Worse still, narcissists say this: I can't remember. Oh, did they get memory loss? The narcissist does this intentionally, right? Why? Because when you don't trust yourself and your sense of reality, guess what? You are easy to manipulate and control and make the narcissist, is what people miss, the narcissist your authority. Make them the one that actually you rely on to see what is true. They have the ultimate control over what you feel, what you think, and what you think is reality. They will put you in a poverty consciousness. They will put you in such a low vibration that you will be just stuck in trauma, in this hell loop, which is a trauma bond, right? The hell loop of highs and lows, where you are completely reliant and dependent on them emotionally, often physically, financially, mentally. It can psychologically, the whole thing. This is psychological abuse. Don't underestimate it. Do not let anyone deny your reality again. I made some earlier videos on that. I will never let anyone deny my reality again. Remember what I teach you guys, that the under the subliminal subconscious programming that this does to you is that you don't matter, and as your own authentic self you don't exist, right? So you just trust the narcissist's sense of reality. This is why people pleasing is dangerous. This is why it's dangerous to think for a minute, if I just pacify him or her, if I just give them what they want, they'll leave me alone. They don't. They get more destructive with time, always. But like, pacifying is a fawn response, which is a trauma response where we're trying to keep the peace. We learn it often in childhood. But the fact is, it just gets deeper and deeper and deeper into the black hole. Now, this psychological warfare, this psychic attack, right, can lead you literally to the edge. Yeah? I have seen narcissists give people, I have seen victims of narcissism have developed dementia, developed all sorts of psychological breakdowns. I've had breakdowns from narcissistic abuse, just literally cannot cope psychologically. This is psychological war. Now, when I was studying trauma, I wanted to understand PTSD, CPTSD, what the heck had happened to me, right? I worked with many veterans because I wanted to understand PTSD fully, and because what I was studying was that, rehab wasn't really effective for them. Yeah, and the problem wasn't necessarily their addictions, which a lot of them had. It was not being able to solve the trauma, which is why I'm so keen on my work. Come into somebody if you can, come into my methods, look on this channel for ways to break trauma bonds, psychological healing, emotional healing videos. I've got so much on here, right? But I really, really wanted to understand this aspect. And I'll tell you, after working with a lot of veterans, I would say that many of them said to me that they found the psychological warfare that they'd experienced in what they'd been through sometimes harder than any kind of physical attack that they had. Now, this is not to measure. We can't compare things. I'm not trying to compare things. All I want from this is not to say what's worse. It's all awful. Physical abuse is awful, absolutely terrible, and so psychological. It's not. The only reason I'm bringing this up is because I want us to see it as serious. When someone can make you mentally ill, it's serious. It's as serious as if they physically assaulted you. And the trouble we have in our society is mental illness has such a stigma, right? We're kind of if people haven't been through mental illness and don't understand psychological welfare, they can be very judgmental. They can just think that, I mean, I've heard it, you know, people think you're weak. You're not weak. They don't know what kind of storm you've withstood, you know what I mean, till you got to your age. You're not weak if you have trouble mentally and emotionally and psychologically and psychically after this happens, right? It is total warfare. And we need more awareness on mental illness being just as inevitable as a physical illness from certain things, right? The human being was not built to withstand this. Yeah. So gaslighting is just the ultimate you don't exist subliminal programming your thing, and completely devaluing and discarding you as your own person, having your own experience. Now let me just tell you this, guys, come back into your hearts, come back into your bodies, right? Always. And know that what is true for you is real. It's true for you. So many of us are not healing, right? And I talk about this all the time, because instead of just being true to how we feel, we judge how we feel. We think we should not feel how we feel. The narcissist will convince you should not have any feelings, right? They're trying to squash, like, you know, just disconnect you from your soul, squash the empathy and light and truth out of you, because your feelings are true, right? Now, I do not think you should necessarily act out on them, but you've got to process them. And that's how we have a relationship with ourselves. We become emotionally intelligent with ourselves. We actually don't punish and shut ourselves down and tell us we shouldn't have a feeling. We literally just be with our feelings. And all emotions are messengers. They've got a message for you. I've often talked about, like, some of the things I did in my life were very risky in terms of, like, I was in a trauma response and I got out, or I took big moves, right? But ultimately they were the correct moves, right? Because what I had done is suppress my emotions for so long, and by the time I actually, like, couldn't hold it in anymore, I just, like, left, or I might have, you know, been hasty rather than strategic in some of the, I'm not very good at just being strategic when emotions are involved. I don't think any of us are, but, you know, maybe planned things a bit better for me. But ultimately I needed to get out of those situations, and, you know, it was still the right thing. All emotions have messages, but you can't bypass the emotion to get to the message. You have to feel the emotion, experience it, let it process, just like you process food and water, right? Your body has to release it so we don't get traumatized and stuck, because trauma just keeps you and your evolution stuck, and it can prevent your manifestations, which I talk about. And then listen to the message, because we want to override so often our emotions with our head. We want to say, well, I shouldn't feel like this, and I could just get, I said it to myself so many times, if I just managed to stay, you know, because I didn't have enough money, you know, it's very hard when I, sometimes financially for me, you know what I mean, and I had to get away, but, like, financially that put me in another challenge, right, often. And so I would beat myself up and say, well, I should have just said, if I could just endure it, if I could just endure it. And my soul was screaming, I couldn't endure it. And there's no way for God to come in unless you let him in. He will make a way where there's no way. So you've got to trust yourself and your intuition, which means we have to heal the heart. There are 2 modules in Sovereign on heart healing, right? Where we release that pain. So you can listen to those whispers. You can listen to your intuition. You can listen, again, to how you really feel and what you need to know. The message is the gold. The message from the emotion is the gold. It's your intuition now getting to a point where it's screaming louder. And if we don't listen to our emotions, guess what? Much emotional suppression and emotional experience is linked to physical illness in the body. If you read Louise Hay's work, there's many medical intuitives and people who have linked very clearly certain emotional and psychological injuries, let's call them injuries because they are, to physical illness, right? Which is why we get sick. We get sick around these people because they're toxic. Yeah, our bodies start breaking down, our mind starts breaking down, we break down, our spirit is being eroded, right? It can't actually ever be eroded because your soul is infinite, but our connection to it, right? And ourselves. So if you want to join Sovereign, I highly recommend it, especially get in there before the holidays, because I've put the price down and it's such a great community. And this is a time of year when a lot of things come up for us, right? It's the equivalent of like 2 therapy sessions, and you'll be in there for a year with support. Lots of love, guys, and I'll speak to you soon.